Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video we're going to take a look at our next installment in our community replay series, and this one features DexFreak playing in the Kiev, the Tier VIII Soviet destroyer. He's playing by himself, and it's some domination here on the map Shards. So if you'd like to send a replay into us, please send it to BIAworldofwarships, all lowercase, at gmail.com. Please include the replay file, post-game screenshots, a brief description of the battle, and then if you'd like myself or Spider to do the commentary, you can also request for that as well. So DexFreak in his Kiev, what are you going to see with this pretty nice replay? Well, the Kiev here in World of Warships is a very interesting destroyer. It's the first really large, I guess, flotilla leader type destroyer that you have access to. Now, as I'm sure many of you are aware, the Soviet destroyer tech tree has two distinct lines, the first of which ends with the Grozovoy and is more of the normal and traditional style of destroyer gameplay where you have really good concealment, you have really good torpedoes, you have really good guns, or some combination of those three, and you want to really get onto the caps and duke it out with other destroyers. However, with the Kiev, Tashkent, and then Khabarovsk 8, 9, and 10 on the, I guess, again, the flotilla leader tech tree, what you get are really large destroyers that trade a little bit of concealment, they trade a little bit of maneuverability, and sometimes they trade gun performance and torpedo performance to just be these massive vessels that support the other destroyers that are going on the cap. Now, of course, that's a bit ironic as I say that. As we can see here, Freak is getting onto the sea cap all by himself. However, this map is conducive to that kind of gameplay because there's so many islands and there's so many avenues of approach that you can use that although his concealment right now is at 7.9 kilometers, which is rather bad for a Tier 8 destroyer, he can safely move in there and put himself behind an island without really any issue whatsoever. Now, of course, the Kiev comes with those very filthy 130mm Russian guns, the B2LMs. You get 6 of them. They have a rate of fire, a base reload of 5 seconds, and they have very good shell performance. 1900 on the HE with an 8% fire chance base and 2500 on an AP Citadel. These guns are very, very potent, and any ship, be it carrier, battleship, cruiser, or destroyer that gives you broadside, will get wrecked by both of the ammunition types. However, one thing about the Kiev that's also pretty nice that he will take advantage of in this replay quite a few times as he takes the solo base cap. That is something that doesn't happen very often in these Soviet destroyers. But the torpedoes are pretty good. He gets 2 quintuple launchers, so 10 torpedoes. They have a range of 8 kilometers. They're very slow. They only have a speed of 55 knots, and they only have a maximum damage of 14,400. However, these things are pretty usable because his concealment, while poor, is still okay enough to allow you to get close and use your torpedoes. Now, when the Kiev is up-tiered, it is very difficult to take advantage of the torpedoes, and it's not just that on the Kiev. It's the same with the Tashkent, and it's even worse with the Khabarovsk at Tier 10. So that's where these Soviet flotilla leaders kind of sacrifice. They have a lot of torpedoes, mind you, but they sacrifice speed, damage, you know, all of the other major statistics that make torpedoes what they are. And you can see here he is launching some at that gaggle of enemy battleships and cruisers that are moving off to the east, to the southeast of sea. However, because it's only 8 kilometers of range, I don't know, maybe he thought that he had 10 kilometers on that. Those ships are already starting to turn away from his torpedoes, so there is absolutely no chance that he's going to score any hits, unless, of course, there was something invisible in between those ships that he could hit. But nonetheless, at this point in the game, it's 333 to 327. He is moving over towards the B cap, and at this point, HMS Gallant appears, that Tier 6 premium British destroyer. And the one thing about these flotilla leaders is that when you get into a one-on-one engagement versus other typical destroyers, well, you can see here the Gallant is getting absolutely shredded. The high explosive shot is doing some massive damage to that guy, and he immediately has to turn away. And something else to note, the Kiev right here has 19,000 hit points to work with in his build. So he's just able to push in, and, well, you know, the Gallant has 7k less hit points to work with, and also, you know, a rate of fire on lower caliber guns that isn't really that impressive. So he's easily able to bully this Gallant around, and you can even see his secondary, the one and lone secondary turret that is at the rear section of the Kiev, is even scoring a hit or two on that guy. However, right here he is losing a bit more hit points than I would like to see. He has not, just until this moment, decided to use his smokescreen, but since the Gallant's engine got knocked out, he appeared to be shooting well in front of that guy on multiple salvos, and unfortunately for him, it's going to cause the kill to get fragged and secured by his friendly Fiji. So a bit poor accuracy-wise right there, but nonetheless, he's now smoked up and he's feeling good. So he's going to start shooting here at the Queen Elizabeth, that Tier 6 British battleship. And this is a situation where these flotilla leaders are really, really good. Generally speaking, they have very good range on the guns. You can see 13.4 kilometers here on this Kiev. So he's easily able to reach out and touch those battleships. There's also a Fuso moving in as well. And you can see right here, he decides to drop his torpedoes. Now, that Fuso is 9 kilometers away. However, that Japanese battleship is moving in towards his position. So because of that, he will be able to potentially secure some hits on this guy because he is now closing the distance and there was only 800 meters to go. And you can see the Fuso is still somewhat moving in towards the position. Now, one thing to note, and this was something that I honestly noticed throughout the course of the replay, in a situation like this, use the armor piercing. As I mentioned earlier, those AP shells do up to 2,500 points of damage if you hit and get a citadel, and shooting into battleships on the broadside can net you a lot of damage with these 130mm guns. Now, of course, he wanted to get the fire set on the Queen Elizabeth, which he has done, but in a situation like this, that Fuso would be taking massive AP penetrations if he was using it. However, you can see those torpedoes, it looks like they're just barely going to reach the battleship, and 1, 2, and 3 for only 26,000 points of damage, but nonetheless 3 floodings caused, and was able to chunk that Fuso down about half of the hit points that he had there in that situation. So a very nice usage of the torpedoes, and he only had about 100 or 200 meters to spare. And then as a parting gift, after the Fuso used his repair, he gave him fire number 6. So the damage is pretty respectable. It's up to about 58,000 points at this moment. However, because this Queen Elizabeth is pushing into the B cap, and because his smokescreen has ran out, he has to get out of dodge. Now, something else about the Kiev, you can see just how blisteringly fast this Soviet destroyer is. And it's not just the flotilla leaders. Most of the Soviet DDs, be it the traditional ones or these flotilla leaders, are very, very fast. 42.5 knots with the top speed. And that's before you even use the speed boost or toss on the Sierra Mike flag. So you can see here, he is flying. And even with all of this hard maneuvering that he's doing, turning left and then turning back to the right, you can see easily getting back above 40 knots, almost approaching 45 right there, which is some very awesome stuff. So at this point, it's 374 to 481. His team has lost 4 ships, and the enemy team has lost 3. However, the very good thing is that the enemy team has lost both of their destroyers, one of which, the Galan, of course, he helped secure the kill on. So with that being the case, the poor concealment that the Kiev has is now not that big of a deal. And that's the thing with those the flotilla leader destroyers. If enemy destroyers, traditional ones for that matter, are able to keep you spotted and they're able to survive throughout the duration of the game, well, it's not just aircraft carriers that give these things problems due to their concealment, but a really well-played destroyer that has much better concealment can give you a lot of issues. But again, because both of the enemy team's DDs are taken care of, now he is in a very good position. So that's obviously going to work to his advantage here. And you're going to see, as he comes around the corner, you can see also that his next smoke is ready to go, and the torpedoes are reloaded, rearmed, and ready to go downrange, that this next sequence is going to involve smoking up, using the guns, and dropping the torpedoes. He comes around the corner, starts opening fire on the Queen Elizabeth. It's only at 19,000 hit points, so that'd be about 2, maybe 3 torpedoes, but we'll see here. He's getting some more high explosive shot into the superstructure, and with a full fire build for that matter, as I mentioned, 8% fire chance base, but with a full fire build, you can get this thing up to 11%, which for a destroyer is pretty darn nice. He drops his full broadside of torpedoes at the Queen Elizabeth, and now he is going to slow down, smoke up, and just continue to pepper him. Because there's so many friendly planes and friendly ships around, you can see his friendly Fuso is over in F7 pushing into the B cap, that everything's going to be spotted here for the next few minutes, so he has no issues just sitting in the smoke screen here and just peppering away and away and away. So yeah, there we go. The torpedoes going down range. It looks like he's going to be able to snag at least a couple hits. So at this point, he actually decides to change his focus away from the Queen Elizabeth. And there we go. 2 torpedoes slam home into that Tier 6 British battleship. He secures his first kill of the game, and he's up to about 100,000 points of damage. So if he were to die right now, this would still be a pretty respectable score. However, the enemy Fuso does take out his friend in the Fuso that was moving into the B cap. So at this point, the enemy team is in complete control of both Alpha and Bravo. And for them to to win the game, they're going to have to make a push and get back that objective. You can see here the friendly North Carolina in front of them. Please don't be that guy. There is no reason to go full broadside in front of the enemy Alabama, even though the Alabama doesn't have the best Sigma or the best accuracy in the game. I have no idea why that guy is doing that. However, you can also see a friendly New Orleans is behind him in the Kiev, so at this point, this engagement is 3 versus 2 at the moment, and at this point, you can see the enemy New Orleans just takes a pretty big hit there. He's down to about 3,000 hit points, and at this situation, he decides to turn his focus and his attention, and that's one thing that's really important, and honestly, it doesn't matter whether this would be a community replay or a review or just regular gameplay. The fact of the matter is, when an enemy ship is on low health and you're in a destroyer, you know, that has a fast rate of fire, switch to the target that has a low amount of hit points, because you need to get those frags secured, and you need to take those guys off of the board so that there's one less set of guns that are able to shoot back at you. Now, this is something that is, well, not necessarily unique to Soviet destroyers. You can get away with it because you have such high speed. That Alabama was about 7 kilometers away as he came flying out of his smoke screen, and he has the speed boost activated, the torpedoes are reloaded, and he is going to go full on and try to point-blank nuke this Alabama. And again, this is something that Soviet destroyers in the right situation. You can see the Alabama is still paying attention to his friend in the New Orleans as his secondary manages to secure 2 more hits. That's awesome. You know, I've heard some people get like 1 or 2 secondary kills with their Kiev, and that's kind of funny to me. But anyway, the Alabama's only 2.5 kilometers away, actually less than that, about 2 now. So at this point, he drops 1 set of torpedoes. Now, of course, the Alabama does have the extremely good torpedo protection. It's up near 50%, if I'm not mistaken, if you put on damage control. So you can see there, those torpedoes not doing a lot of damage, only 2 slamming to the side, but that other set is going to take care of business, and he picks up his 2nd kill of this battle, his 9th torpedo hit, taking very good advantage of those 8-kilometer torpedoes, and up to 142,000 points of damage. He is now on the B cap. His team does have the ship lead 6-5. You can see the enemy Fuso is only 2.5 kilometers away, and he is moving out of the B objective. There's also an enemy Gneisenau that is trying to move into B as well. However, he does have a trio of friendly battleships that are giving chase to those guys. So at this point, as he has 1 more smoke screen to work with, he's going to move out and around the corner, around the side of the island, so he can shoot not only at the Fuso, but also at the Gneisenau. And as he picks up the high caliber, he pops his last smoke screen of the game. You can see the Fuso is trying to turn those turrets to his position, but he is going to go undetected right here. And once again, this is every Soviet DD captain's wet dream, being able to shoot unhindered at enemy battleships, at enemy ships for that matter, and not having to worry about all that much. Now, of course, the Gneisenau is turning broadside, so, you know, you should assume that he would be dropping torpedoes into the smoke screen, but you can see here that he is moving backwards in the smoke, anticipating that clearly. So there's really not going to be that much trouble here. Freak should be able to dodge any potential torpedoes that are coming in here, and any second now, the Gneisenau's torpedoes will get detected. The Fuso decides to blind fire into the smoke screen, and there we go. There come the torpedoes, and of course, it's a wide drop. When you only got 1 torpedo set to work with, the wide drop is really not that good of an idea, but I digress. The torpedoes were dropped anyway, and Freak here made the right play. He had an idea that the torps were incoming, and he is now in a good position. So at this point, the enemy Fuso goes down, so now all that's left is the Gneisenau, and that Gneisenau, he's as good as dead. There's nothing, that guy's going to be able to do to get out of this situation. You can see that he is trying to run down and torpedo the friendly Scharnhorst that's on his team, but once this Gneisenau goes down, this game will all but be wrapped up. The only ships left on the enemy team are, of course, the aircraft carrier, the Independence, and then an enemy Otago, which has moved into the A cap, I would assume. The assisted base capture goes to Freak here as he picks up his 2nd cap taken care of during this game. You can see, unfortunately, the friendly Scharnhorst goes down to the torpedoes. That Gneisenau actually made a really nice play right there, baiting out the Scharnhorst torpedo salvo, but alas, he kicks the bucket as the friendly New Mexico manages to take care of that Tier 7 German battleship. And at this point, it is now 722 to 585. So thus far in the replay, what we've seen is pretty good gun performance, a bit wonky on the accuracy, to be honest with you. There was quite a few shots. He really should have secured the kill on the enemy Gallant, but yeah, pretty good gun usage, very nice usage of the torpedoes. This is something that is kind of a bonus with these flotilla leaders, because chances are when you're up-tiered, honestly, when you're top tier as well, it's very difficult to use these torpedoes. Obviously, this map is a pretty good one to be able to take advantage of it, but on more open maps like, say, Okinawa or Tears of the Desert, it's very difficult to be able to take consistent use. So being able to secure these hits, again, it's a nice bonus, but 9 of them for that matter. He's put himself in 3 different situations during this battle to be able to land torpedo hits. So with that being the case, he has done a very nice job in being able to utilize those metal fish. Getting some armor-piercing shot at the enemy Otago. He made the right play, even though the Otago has a very slow rate of fire, 16 seconds before modifiers are added. He made a very nice decision to not try and chase down that guy because, of course, the big thing with Japanese heavy cruisers is that they have those very long-range 10-kilometer torpedoes that they have very good firing arcs over the rear of the ship. So it's a very good thing he didn't decide to chase that guy down. And with only 7,900 hit points, he's still doing okay. But one good meaty Otago salvo will chunk him down even more so. So he's got to be careful here. So he's still staying at a bit of a standoffish range, and he's also using the armor-piercing shot on the Otago's broadside. Now, you can see that some of the shells are deflecting, some of the shells are shattering on the side of the broadside. Once you get below, I'd say, 8 kilometers, that's when you start to deal really consistent damage with the AP on enemy cruisers. The Otago shell does light him on fire. The Independence does try and drop on him, but he was easily able to dodge those torpedo salvos. That was a bit of a misplay on the carrier. You can see that he does manage to spot the Independence running away, but at this point he has to circle back around and try to get out of dodge. He shoots down his second plane with the rather mediocre AA. Really, the only DDs in the game that have amazing AA are on the main Soviet destroyer line and the American DD line. But the Kiev, it's okay. But you can even see that those are Tier 6 planes, and he still wasn't able to do too much. So at this point, 893 to 669. Kind of looks like he's a bit confused on how he wants to approach this engagement with the Otago. He really does want to do more damage, but he's not 100% sure how he's going to go about it. The New Orleans and the Scharnhorst are moving in on the ACAP, and it does appear that the New Orleans is shooting from time to time at the enemy Otago. So what I guess he's looking for right here is to try to work him over on a different angle. He did have high explosive loaded, so the first salvo is with the HE. Picks up the Confederate as well. If you've lost track of the damage counter, a very, very nice 167,000 points of damage dealt. He does get hit by 3 shells and almost 2k there from the Otago, and that was just with the front 2 turrets, the front 4 guns for that matter. So yeah, he's got to continue to kite away, but again, with the speed that the Kiev has, it does make it very difficult. And even at 8 kilometers, you're going to see here over the next couple of shots that come in at him, he is able to dodge quite a few of the Otago's rounds. Now, for some reason, the Otago is giving chase and is not trying to open up full broadside to utilize all 10 of the guns. And in my opinion, that is a mistake on the Otago player that Freak, at least here, is taking advantage of. And in a situation where the Otago player is much better than the guy that is playing it right now, I really do think that Freak would be in a very bad spot right here. But also, he's only got 5,000 hit points left. The game is virtually secured, so if he were to kick the bucket right now, I guess it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. So I can understand why he still wants to engage this guy and rack up a little bit more damage. He switches back to the armor-piercing shot. You can see here are more shells coming in, only 1 hits. The rear section of the ship still has 4,000 hit points, so it's okay. And he continues to pump more good salvos in. It appears the Scharnhorst hits the Otago with a decent salvo, and then he manages to light a fire. The Otago is now down to 1,500 hit points and burning along the front part of the superstructure. And right as the game is about to end here, the next salvo flies in, and he secures his 3rd kill of the game. What a performance here in the Kiev. Alrighty guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results. Just over 400,000 credits received and 13,400 total EXP. I would imagine this was the first win of the day. He picked up Confederate and high caliber, dishing out 178,000 points of damage off of 422 shell hits and 9 torpedoes. He shot down 2 planes, sank 3 enemy vessels, had 13 fires set, 1 base capture, 1 assisted base capture, and 12 hits with that lone secondary turret. Taking a look at the team score, 2,557 base EXP here as top tier. DexFreak. That was a very, very nice performance and a very nice carry by you in this game. I'd also like to give a shout out to Rabra in the New Orleans, 24 planes shot down, and just over 2k base EXP himself. Probably did a little bit of damage as well. Taking a look at the detailed report, 85,000 damage dealt with the main battery. If you just took that number, that's still pretty good. 70,000 damage dealt with the torpedoes off of the 9 hits, and a further 22,000 damage dealt with the fires and the floodings that were set. He also managed 80 out of the 120 capture points for his team, which is very, very nice. So, yeah, again, thank you for sending in this replay. This was a pretty good performance in the Kiev, and I was glad to feature it here on the channel. So with that being said, this is the Sneaky Snake for Brothers in Arms World of Warships signing off. Please consider giving the video a like, commenting on it, or possibly subscribing to the channel. All of it is very much appreciated. And with that being said, have a great day.